Hold on one sec. All right. I got contractors working on my office here. I was like, you guys got to take lunch. You can hear me okay, Dennis?
I hear you fine.
And then we'll just wait for Ramos to make sure that we sound good. I'm gonna go
I
ahead
do
and...
not have, but I don't have any picture.
I don't have any pic. I hear you crystal clear. I just can't see Dennis.
Wait, well, yeah, you can't see Dennis yet because I haven't brought him in yet to the stream.
Okay, so I could hear you and Dennis perfectly.
And could you see me on the? Can you see me on the YouTube, the live stream?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. All right, so let me switch pictures here so that I have IRA Club's website. Okay, and then I will go. There we go. Today, I couldn't see myself on the stream yesterday. Today, I got you. I have Dennis Blitz there. My name's Aaron Adams. Welcome to our live stream today. The topic, like we've mentioned, is, in fact, I'm going to bring up let me make sure I have the chat bar for any questions. Any questions that you have, feel free to throw those to us, and Dennis and I will happily answer those for you today as well. For the next 60 minutes, we are going to be focusing on passive income, passive wealth development. Many of you have expressed interest in passive investing in real estate, and we're going to break that down for you. One of the reasons I invited Dennis here, who is owner and founder of the IRA Club, is because the driver behind many of the investors that we work with, the motivator for them, is they would like to take their retirement money and invest a portion of it passively. Now, before we get started here, Dennis and I were talking about passive investing, and a lot of times it feels like when you're investing in real estate passively, it feels like you're trading 4 quarters for $1, doesn't it, Dennis?
Oh, it certainly does, but we're going to go through some examples this hour that'll show sometimes it's 4 quarters for 8 quarters.
Right. In fact, it's funny you say that. I remember reading, I was reading an article a couple of years ago. It talked about a convalescence center, and this old gentleman had taken dollar bills and he was feeding them into the quarter machine, and the staff were all laughing because he would put $1 in, and then every time the coins came out, he would yell jackpot, and they thought, oh, that's cute, crazy old man. And then the next day, a tech shows up. He's repairing the quarter machine. He said it was giving out 5 quarters for $1. So he had the last laugh. And it's funny. I felt that way over the years. When I've been doing real estate for 20 years, and I remember when I was teaching high school when I first started out. People are always. It's interesting how real estate is sexy, and that there's a hierarchy for the non-real estate people. And so obviously being a developer sounds really sexy. Owning a mobile home park is not sexy. Owning an apartment complex is sexy. Owning a single family home as a rental is usually what you do when you can't sell your house. And so we'd like to blow some of that up because Dennis and I are both very savvy investors. We both have been investing actively and passively for years. And the sexiest investment is the investment that makes the most cash flow and also has the most amount of equity. That's sexy. And Dennis and I have some property that we're partnered on that the profit and loss the last few years has been dismal. I mean, at best we've broken even some of the years, but our balance sheet, the amount of equity, we've probably quadrupled our initial investment, and so neither of us care. I've been excited, Dennis. We haven't had to come out of pocket on that property for a while.
Actually, I have that property this year is cash positive, but for the first time it's cash positive. Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't it funny? I don't even know because I know we bought right. You make money when you buy in real estate, and so I've learned to be disconnected because one of the biggest mistakes you can make with your passive investments is to micromanage them. I meet investors who are very good business owners, very good entrepreneurs, who struggle to trust their original decision and sit back and let a passive investment grow for them. And And for a lot of people who are coming from a stock background or an index fund background, the only thing you have is what's it done for me lately? What's it doing right now? And people get disconnected from the triple benefit of passive investing, which, yes, cash flow is very important, but equally important is appreciation and equity, and also equally important are tax benefits.
You know, Aaron, on that topic, I want to pause for a moment. We get people who have a IRA, a house in their IRA every now and then. This is not common, but we get it. And the person will tell me, you know, I bought this house, my IRA, and I was hoping it was going to do so, you know, this and this. And, you know, it's done less than whatever I was hoping. And I want to sell. And, you know, and I'll ask them, just tell me, you know, what's happened in the neighborhood. You know, I know you're talking about you're just looking at just the P&L, but that neighborhood may have transformed. Something else is happening in the neighborhood that is sucking up the value, making the value of the property increase dramatically. And we always tell people, you know, go back and let's look at the whole picture before you make up your mind. And we get call after call, people saying, yeah, thank you, because I didn't realize that, you know, across the street, down the block, around the corner, they're building a, you know, this or that, and it's going to cause, you know, thousands of people to come here.
Yeah, it's. I had a client. There's an area in Indianapolis that we've been selling properties for the past few years called 16 Tech, and what the city of Indianapolis did was they took a pretty rough neighborhood, low income, high crime, kind of a war zone, and they are converting it to a tech friendly development zone. Tech is big in Indianapolis, and the city realizing that about 6 years ago, really started to say, what can we do as a city to foster tech growth and to reward it? And so they kind of earmarked this zone. So realizing what a huge benefit it was going to be and how much the city was committing millions of dollars to this area, we started buying homes in the adjacent neighborhoods. Now, those were rough homes. They were low income. There was high crime. There was, you know, drug activity. You know, there was everything negative in terms of metrics about those neighborhoods. And you know, when we showed, we would have investors come to our monthly training, and we would drive over to the neighborhood and say, yeah, you can see here, it's a pretty rough area, but look, here are the bulldozers. They're doing this tech redevelopment zone. The city's spending millions of dollars. Over the next 10 years, there's going to be $400 million spent on this. And people go, great, I can't wait, I want one of these deals. So we would sell them one of the property. Well, keeping in mind that you still bought a property in a really rough neighborhood, and a year later when the tenant would not stay through the next lease and they would leave after 12 months, or they'd have an eviction, or they would have a tenant move out and they'd fix the house up and somebody would get in there and break in and do some damage, they would call me and frustrate and say, man, that property's not doing well. And I would say, no, remember 16 Tech, and here's a recent article, and I know you went back to California after you bought this property from me and that we're managing it for you. And so good passive investors learn to understand the holy trinity of passive investing, which is the 35,000 foot of your cash flow, your tax benefits, and your appreciation and equity. And if you don't learn to evaluate that, in fact, we do that for our investors. When we sell an investor a property, we use an acronym called EBITDA. And Dennis, what's EBITDA?
Yes, it is. Earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation.
Yep, and amortization. The A.
Amortization.
Yep.
Yeah, the A.
and you know, Dennis has bought and sold businesses. I've bought and sold businesses. When you buy or sell a business, you look at the earnings before the taxes, depreciation, interest, and amortization. So a few years ago, I had a bar, and the bar was doing $1 million a year. I didn't care that the bar owner was only paying taxes on $50,000 a year, because I just wanted to know how much money was he putting in the register. I cared way more about the earnings, the $1 million a year, than I did his tax statement that showed that he was only paying taxes on $50,000, his net. Because his true net was somewhere in between there. I mean, every good business owner minimizes to the IRS what your gain is to minimize your tax bill, and somewhere in between. And so when you buy a business, you look at those earnings, and we track our properties like a business, and we think of them like a business, and we encourage our investors to think of that, because EBITDA also encompasses the appreciation, the equity, and then you also look at the tax benefits from that. And so we actually have a tracking system for our investors that we sell passive properties to, where we calculate that for you. Now, I want to dig into some content because Dennis has some really great slides. And keep in mind also, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat bar. We're happy to answer those for you. But I wanted to highlight a couple things real quick. 2 websites. First of all, the IRA Club. That's the website for Dennis's company, iraclub.org. And you can see, I have the website on the screen here. You can see one of the areas that he talks about is common self-directed investments. These are common investments where his company is the trustee for investors who've said, I'm taking charge of my retirement money, I'm taking charge of my 401k or my IRA, I'm going to self-direct it. And then, you can see here, we have investors that do real estate inside their IRA or their 401k. We have investors that do loans and they lend money to businesses out of their IRA or 401ks. Mobile homes are popular. And so this is a great resource for you as anything that we're talking about today. There's some really fantastic articles that we've put together. You should also have a copy of a video that Dennis and I recorded, a 3-hour training. In fact, I'm going to type Fred's email in the chat bar here, Fred at Alpine CS. And if you don't have that 3-hour training that Dennis and I recorded on how to self-direct your retirement money, where we walk you through step-by-step over 3 hours, exactly what you need to do that, and get that set up with IRA Club for just $200, then email Fred and we'll happily send you the YouTube link to that 3-hour training that we put together. So wanted to share that as well. And one other website is Alpine Capital Solutions. alpinecs.com. You can see it behind me on the logo. But on our Alpine Capital Solutions page, we have live training events, and we mentioned this in our meeting yesterday. But in 2 weeks, Dennis and I will be in Indianapolis. We have about 25 investors who will be attending live. That's September 11th, 12th, and 13th. It's a 3-day event. If you qualify, we pay for your hotel room. We provide all the meals. And by qualifying, you need to have at least $100,000 that you can invest passively. Now, that can be $100,000 in an IRA. That can be $100,000 in a 401k. That can be $100,000 in a savings account. We don't make you prove that. We just have that conversation with you. And if you're interested in attending the training, you'll again just email Fred at Alpine Capital Solutions. He can put you in touch with our team. They'll reach out to you, give you a phone call, and we'll send you a confirmation. Now, if you don't qualify for the event, you're not completely out of luck. We live stream the event, and we're happy to share the live stream with you so that you can benefit from the education, because for 3 days, our sole focus is passive investing. And so not only do we spend what we're going to try to cover in an hour today, but we spend 3 days. It's 9 to 5 on Friday, 9 to 5 on Saturday, 9 to 3 on Sunday. Classroom every day. I teach. Dennis teaches. I have attorneys come in. I have tax specialists come in. I have we literally put you on a bus and we take you around. We go look at Airbnbs. We look at multifamily. We look at projects that I have going on there in Indianapolis. And then we also have deals. And so my partners from Charlotte come into town. They bring the actual properties that we have for sale. My partners from Kansas City come into town. My partners from Idaho are in town. And so we basically get everyone together 9 times a year. And you can see at the Alpine Capital Solutions event page, we have 3 more events this year. You can also email us, reach out to us, contact us, and we'd be happy to get you some more information on that. So we'd love to have you join us for that in terms of what kind of follow-up can you have today. And I'll mention those at the end of the call. But I'd love for Dennis to have you share your screen, and we'll put that up on the live stream here so that you can go through the presentation that you've put together.
Okay,
So just hop onto YouTube and click on. There we go.
So
okay, we got your presentation.
Got your presentation up. So all right. So what we're going to talk about is comparing results, because how you invest makes a difference in real estate, probably more than any other investment that I can think of. Although there's a lot of investments where IRAs do make a difference. So we're going to talk about real estate here, but this will carry over to other investments like lending, etc. also. Let's just do real estate. So this is comparing results of different ways that people can invest. And there we go. So you may make the exact same investment, but you can make it in different ways. For example, we're going to talk about, again, buying houses. So you could buy the house with your personal funds, sell the house, and receive the funds. Very, very common. People do that all the time. You could buy the house with personal funds, and then instead of selling it, you do a 1031 exchange. Very common, and not as common nearly, but common. And then we have a lot of people who let their IRA buy the house and then use the IRA when the house is being sold. So you do it all the way through. Now, when I say personal funds, I don't care whether it's your funds out of your pocket or you borrowed funds, but they're funds that you are somehow liable for. Pardon me. And again, personal funds again in number 2, but the sale is through a 1031 exchange, and of course, letting the IRA do the purchase. Now, how are you going to put money in the IRA? If you have an IRA right now, terrific. If you don't, we can transfer money in from another IRA that you may have at Fidelity or Schwab or wherever it might be. You can transfer in money from an old 401k or any kind of other retirement plan. These things are, I don't want to say easy to fund, but there's lots of ways to fund them. Excuse me. So let's go on. We've got here, let me see if I can get some of this out of the way so I can read my own stuff. So we're going to talk about using personal funds to buy the transaction, using personal funds and selling with a 1031 exchange, or buying with a Roth IRA. Those are the kind of 3 things that we see. Those are the 3 choices that people tend to end up making in one way or the other. We're going to deal with the rental income you can get from the property, because you'll get rent on a house if you're buying as an investment. We're going to talk about the profit of the sale. And we're going to talk about what happens with any additional costs. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about rent. If you buy the house using your personal funds, the rent income will be taxed at ordinary income tax rate. Now, the property may depreciate, and so you'll get some deduction on that, but you will pay for anything beyond the depreciation value at ordinary income tax rate.
Now this is huge, Dennis, because I have clients that I have a client right now. He's a doctor, lives in Kentucky. So he's bought several million dollars with his personal funds. He gets some he's paid cash, some he has mortgages, and he's in and will be the rest of his life. He's in the 40% plus highest tax bracket.
Oh yeah.
So on those rentals, he actually mentioned that because of all the tax benefits that are out there for investors, he does pay a lower tax rate than what he earns as a doctor. And so from that standpoint, he loves it because he says, look, on stuff outside of my retirement accounts, I'm able to average only about 10% on my rental income, whereas every time I'm practicing as a doctor, I'm paying 40 cents on every dollar. But once he was actually not aware that he could own real estate inside of his retirement accounts. And when we explained that to him, he was just floored. He's like, man, this is money that I'd never even thought that I could use for real estate.
Right. And literally every day, we've been talking about this now for years and years. This rule that's in place went in September of 1974. And yet every day somebody will show up and say, I didn't know I could do this. Pardon me, with my funds. Okay, so let's buy the house with our personal funds or borrowed funds with the intention of doing a 1031 exchange. And again, all that rental income will be taxable at my ordinary income tax rate, which in this case, your doctor's rate is like 40-some-odd%. And I know somebody's going to say, no, it's not that high. Yes, it is if you have a state that has state income tax. It's more than that, right? And of course, if my IRA buys it, my Roth IRA buys it, there is no tax on the rental income. Okay, so already you say, gee, yeah, there's an advantage to letting my IRA buy that. I see that. Okay, let's go to the second one, profit on the sale. If I buy with my personal funds, what I'll pay is long-term capital gain rates, assuming I held it for more than a year. So I pay long-term capital gain rates. So that's, that's a bargain. That's a deal. Or here's the one where I think people really are getting tripped up currently. And that is a lot of people are still doing 1031 exchanges. But what does a 1031 exchange do? It doesn't eliminate the tax. It defers the tax. And if you're deferring the tax now, in the future, when the tax does become payable and due and payable, will taxes be lower or higher than they are now? Of course, taxes are going up. They're not going down.
People are wishful thinking if you think they're going down.
I think they're going down, right? No, this is for everybody, and I don't care who's elected in the future. That's not what this discussion is about. But right now, income taxes are on sale. If you have if you know you're going to be paying income taxes, pay for them when they're on sale. So pay taxes now. And yet I see people every day right now. I know people who are doing 1031 exchanges so they can defer the tax. And I say you're deferring the tax into a disaster. Okay. And of course, if my IRA buys it, there is no income tax. So no tax, no tax. Now I got that 59.5 in there. You can actually take the money out of your IRA at any time. Some people are concerned, oh, gee, if I put it in the IRA, it's locked in. If you put money into an IRA on a Tuesday and you want to take it out on Wednesday, fine, you can take it out, no problem. All the little penalties, the penalties aren't high, but all the little penalties go away at 59.5. 59.5 comes pretty quick, I can assure you. Okay, let's go to the next one. What about additional costs that might occur? And the additional costs are this: for the personal funds person, who pays the apartment? There will be accounting fees every year because we've got real estate. You've got a lot going on. You've got depreciation. You've got recapture. You've got all the other things going on with real estate. You're not going to do those tax returns yourself. You're going to pay an accountant to do them. Once you've got some real estate in there, the accountant is going to charge you more for those documents. If you do it with a 1031 exchange, you have the accounting fees every year, plus you have to pay the 1031 intermediary. Remember, you cannot do a 1031 on your own. You have to hire an intermediary. The intermediary will charge for their service. Intermediary fees are going up. They've started going up this year. They will continue to go up because the little secret about intermediaries was they always made money, the bulk of their money, on the float of all your money they were holding. Interest has gone away. They're not making money there anymore. And so their fees have started to go up. And we're seeing those fees, we used to see those fees around $1,000, $1,200. We're seeing them creep up to $2,000, $2,200, $2,300. They're heading north. And lastly, that Roth IRA extra fees, yeah, you do have to pay the cost of an IRA account. It's a whole lot less than accounting fees, than 1031 intermediary fees. So take a look. You can see very quickly the tax advantages of dealing with a Roth IRA. These are the same investments, the same house, the same money was invested, the same risk. So let's talk. I'm sorry.
Let me jump in for a sec, Dennis. I could see somebody going, all right, so we're talking about passive investing today. Why are we talking about that first? Because from an investor who's doing $100 million a year in real estate, okay, to an investor who's thinking about passive investing and trying to educate themselves, it's important that you create a personal hierarchy of how your money's allocated. So, for example, if you got a couple $1 million in retirement accounts like right now, I would like you to think, first of all, what percentage of that should I be potentially diversifying into real estate? Because for many of you, you didn't even know you could buy real estate outside of buying a REIT. And now there's this new idea, well, I can invest in real estate, and then what percentage? I can tell you that the top 0.1% of all Americans keep about 1/3 of their net worth in real estate. And so add up your net worth, what percentage of your net worth is your retirement account, and then think about that. That flows through also to outside your IRA, because what we're talking about here is, everybody wants to own real estate. But if if you're making 9% interest from the cash flow on a property, and now you own that outside of a retirement account and you're paying 40%, 30%, or even just 10% taxes on that rental property, and you have the benefit to have pure compounded growth inside of your retirement account. Now it's like you're making an additional return on your money, because outside the retirement account it's a gross 9%. It's like a net 7, 8, 6%. Inside the retirement account it's a gross 9%. It's an almost a net 9% because your fee structure is so nominal. Then why wouldn't you maximize that first? Why wouldn't that be the very first thing that you do? And then going forward, predetermine as your retirement money accumulates. It doesn't matter what structure you have, a traditional 401k, a Roth, or an IRA. Then make sure that you continue forward with that. We have clients that every year come back to our training in Indianapolis to get another deal. They reconnect with our team. Where are you investing? What do you got going on? And it's time to get another deal. And so it's important that you be thinking strategically about the little pockets of money and things that you have going on. We had a client, Dennis, last month that we met that had an inherited IRA.
Right.
And it was a very large IRA that he had inherited.
Yes.
And he just wanted it to be almost 100% in real estate. Why was that, Dennis?
Well, I will tell you, he liked that particular investment. And by the way, that person did transfer their money. It arrived here a couple of days ago. I saw it come in. So when you inherit an IRA, Aaron skipped to another topic, but I just want to fill that in. When you inherit an IRA, you have inherited that IRA and you inherit the ability to invest it. And so maybe the person you inherited it from had, mutual funds, and that was what they had. And you say, gee, wait, I think real estate would be the right investment for my IRA, because I know a lot of people have made a lot of money in real estate. We can make that adjustment for you. It's a very, very simple adjustment. So let's just stay on this one slide for a second. You can see there's a substantial advantage to letting your IRA buy the real estate. Now, if there's anybody here who says, wait a minute, my IRA does not have enough money to buy real estate. If I transfer in my old 401k, that won't be enough money to buy real estate. Well, let me tell you, IRAs can partner. We have a tremendous number of IRA people, investors, who said, my IRA doesn't have enough. My spouse's IRA doesn't have enough. Together, they have enough to purchase this house. We can partner 2 IRAs or 3 IRAs. We can partner any number of IRAs. It gets cumbersome after 3 or 4 IRAs, but 2 IRAs can partner. So it's you and a spouse, you and a friend, you and a relative, you and your cousin, Ernie, can partner to make large investments that you can afford. Let's go on and talk about the next little step here.
Dennis, we had somebody ask you if you could put your slides in present mode, because it's tough for them to see it on their phone.
Present mode.
So just go to slideshow up on the top there.
Yeah.
And then push from current slide, from current. Right
slide.
Yeah. Here, present.
Where?
Right there.
Oh, right there?
Yep. No, you have to exit out.
Okay.
Exit cancel.
Oh, you have to enable. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Am I okay there?
But you want to, it's showing your view. So you want to put, go to display settings.
Can you switch it over?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You can't do it as a dual screen, that's why.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, I cannot do it as a dual screen for some reason, I'm told.
Okay, so you can exit out of it. Now it's, because it's even smaller now.
Oh, yeah, I made it worse. Is that better? Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. To that person, I'm sorry that I didn't. Here we go. Let's go on to who is responsible for extra costs. Because when you invest in real estate, there are costs. Costs come up. So the 2 costs that we'll focus on, other costs are there, but could be there. But the 2 costs that come up the most are, of course, property taxes and state and city fees, and of course maintenance. So if you bought the property with your personal funds, you would pay the tax, and you would be responsible to pay for the maintenance. If you bought the property with your personal funds, totally expecting to do a 1031 exchange, oh, don't worry, I have no costs, I'm going to do a 1031 exchange. Wait a second, you're going to be the person who's responsible for your property tax, state and city costs and fees, and of course, you're the person who's responsible to pay for maintenance. But if your IRA purchased the property, the real estate investment, the IRA pays the cost of the property tax. Your IRA pays state and city taxes. Your IRA pays for the maintenance, and you don't put your hand in your pocket. So there's a lot of relief when your IRA is the owner. You're not the responsible party. The IRA is the responsible party. And an IRA administrator like ourselves will take care of that for you and just write those checks. So it relieves some pressure. Who's paying these costs? The IRA is paying the costs. So let's have another reason. Let's say a person who invests with their personal funds or defers taxes using a 1031 exchange earned an annual return of 12%. Now we're picking a number out of a hat when we say 12%, because real estate investors can earn more, or it can earn a lot more or less, but that's a pretty, okay number. And you can see that the person who used not their personal funds or deferred taxes using a 1031 exchange, the person who used an IRA who eliminated taxes, he's going to be making more on exactly the same thing, because when the rent comes in, there's no income tax. When he makes the sales, there's no income tax. When he doesn't have to pay for extra accounting fees, doesn't have to pay for 1031 administrator, he doesn't have to pay for lots and lots of things, so the IRA is taken care of it. So on the same exact investment, that person will net more. Now, we're just going to pick a number of what he's going to net, or she, and we're going to say they're going to invest on the same investment, same risk, 15% instead of the 12% the other person netted. I think the difference is going to be broader than that, but we're just going to use this little difference of from 12% return to a 15% return as our goalpost, just to help us understand how this works. And now, just to put everybody on a level playing field, we're going to assume this investor is going to start with a $100,000 investment of investable capital. We're going to say they never, ever add to that again, which is unrealistic. But we're going to say that. And we're going to invest for, I see, I've got different stakes in here. How about that? I'm going to change that right here. 20 or 24 years. Okay, so let's do this. I should have said 25. I'm going to correct this. Pardon me. There we go. So let's go here and say, we're starting with the same amount of investment. We're investing in the same things. The person who did not use their IRA, they invest on their own, after 20 years, that $100,000 will have turned into $964,000. That person is probably, happy, I guess. I don't know. If they use their IRA, it turned into, at 15%, $1,636,000. It's a big difference. And that's assuming only 3% change from 12 to 15. But really, the change, as you can see, is probably going to be wider than that. I just picked a narrow number for illustration. But what happens if they invest for 25 years? And I can tell you, IRA owners invest for a long time because we're watching them. And so with 25 years, they're going to have, let me get down to it. They're going to have, there we are, $1,700,000 outside the IRA, but using the IRA, they had $3,291,000, a substantial difference on just those few percent. So at this point, somebody listening should be saying, hey, maybe I should be considering buying my passive investments with my IRA dollars, because the end result is so much different. And now, just before we go on from this is the point I wanted to make, but before we go on, just to drive the point home is, does anybody want to see what happens at 30 years? Because at 30 years, and 30 years I know sounds like a long time, I understand. But if you are young, 30 years is very realistic. If you're just, let's say 50, the likelihood that you're going to live to 80 is very, very probable. It's not even, a possible, it's now a probable number. So, people who are just in their 50s or, just turning 50, 30 years is not a long time in an IRA. You can believe me. I get up every morning and say, gee, I wish I was 70 again. But 30 years. Okay, so let's take a 30-year example, and you can see the person who invested not using their IRA as almost $3 million, $2,995,000. But the same person, the same investments, the same returns, same risk, started with $100,000 in 30 years is $6,221,000. It is a dramatic difference by investing as much as you can with your tax-free money. And this is based on now what happens when taxes go up. Well, what happens when taxes go up, I can tell you, is this number here will stay the same. This number will get smaller. So you do want to consider, if you have an IRA, whether and you're considering investing in real estate, considering other investments, use as much as you can of that IRA or your solo 401k if you have that for your investments. Don't let that money sit idly. Don't let that money sit, in a mutual fund someplace hoping for the best. This is going to be your golden dollars. And you don't have to do anything because you already have them, and we'll help you, just convert it to self-directed so you can make self-directed investments. I don't know. I just put this up here so that you can see our website. It's iraclub.org, as Aaron said. There's our phone number. You can call Aaron's office. They'll have all of our information. But if you do call our office, these are the people who would answer the phone. They're all very, very well informed. They're all very knowledgeable, and really a bunch of really nice people who will be happy to answer your questions. So Aaron, there we go. Let's go back to this slide, and you can take it.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and if you want to just reshare your, unshare your screen back.
It's not sure. Here we go. Boom. There we go. You're back.
There we go. So, yeah, it's really staggering when you start to look at the differences between that taxes and fees have on money that's outside of a retirement account. And people don't think of this generally, do they, Dennis?
It is astonishing the amount of that very, very valuable money, that very valuable IRA tax-free, solo 401k tax-free money that is being ignored by people. Oh, it's just there. It's almost afterthought money. And when it is really, all money is not created equal. Some money is more valuable as an investment tool than others. And for sure, IRA and 401k, solo 401k money is very valuable money.
Yeah, it really is. So our first point for passive investors is, number one, get your arms around where your retirement money is, because that's one of your best sources for passive income. Number two, look at what return you're making. But Dennis, how often do we meet people that are like, I don't know what I've been making in there. There's more than, I put some money in and there's more every year.
I can tell you, when we do a live event and we're sitting in the back of the room and talking to people because people come up with a question, and we ask the question, where is your money now? I will tell you a good quarter to a third of the people, I say, I'm not sure, I have to look.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
Yeah, it really is. So I've been working on a theory, a philosophy about my passive investments. And when it comes to my real estate, this is just, I've been doing this for 20 years. I have right now about $15 million in passive real estate. I have another $10 million in active projects that I'm working on. And then I have my businesses that I own. So my net worth is just over $50 million. And Dennis, I haven't ran this by you, so I'm interested to hear your kind of raw gut on this. So I noticed, when you first started, 20 years ago, I'm teaching in high school, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I say, I want some passive investments because passive income is king, right? And there's two mistakes that people make with their passive investing. Number one, they think that that the end all is to buy a bunch of passive investments, and it is, but usually the path they do that, and the path that I did was I went and got a bunch of mortgages and had a bunch of leveraged properties. So level one, it goes from very little passive to some passive real estate. I want you to think twice before getting a bunch of mortgages on long-term passive investments, because my rule of thumb is if it's my active income, I love mortgages, I like loans, I like debt. If it's my long-term passive, I usually like to hold that free and clear, and let me explain why. Imagine getting a 30-year mortgage on a rental property on an apartment complex. And, I've bought over 10,000 properties at the foreclosure auction over the years. And what I find is that when I go to the auction, I'm buying somebody else's catastrophic life event. It's somebody else's divorce, somebody else's death of a spouse, somebody else's cancer diagnosis. I mean, really sad reasons why people lose properties. And frequently those are investment properties. And so what I find is when people are running the numbers and they're saying, yes, I will get a higher cash return if I get a mortgage on this apartment building for 30 years. And they have a spreadsheet to show that if they put 20 or 30% down, that their cash on cash return goes up. The problem with those analysis is there's no asterisk, there's no contingency that says, but if I get cancer and I can't manage the property, here's how I'll pay the mortgage. Or if my spouse dies and my spouse was the one that did everything with the property, here's how I'm going to not lose it to foreclosure. And so if I lose my job, here's how I'll continue to spend money if I need to cover the liabilities on that. And so very well-intentioned people lose on a regular basis these long-term investments because they decided to put a loan on them. And if those of you that have heard of Dave Ramsey, at our weekend training, I usually show a 10-minute phone call where an investor called and he said, hey, I have a couple $1 million worth of rentals. Should I use the cash flow to pay down the mortgages, or should I buy more property? And one of the things that Dave Ramsey points out, which I love, is that in real estate, we don't put a risk coefficient to the property. We generally don't think about risk, and we just say all loans are good loans, and it's a mistake to do that. And so what I usually encourage investors to do is you're better off owning a smaller portfolio of free and clear property passively, and then focus on the active side on making more money, because people will say to me, well, I can only afford one property. Right, you just brought up the problem. You're not making enough money to get the amount of passive properties that you want to have that be a retirement. So in my case, my wife and I, we spend $20,000 to $30,000 a month to live. And our passive portfolio now throws off over $100,000 in rental income, unleveraged. And so, in terms of our financial goals, we could stop at any time. I'm 47 and I could stop and just live off of my passive investments. And so if you're not on a path where your passive real estate is the target number that you want for your retirement, maybe you have a pension, maybe you plan on spending down some of your 401k that's cash, whatever your game plan is for your retirement, passive income, if you're not on path to meet those goals and you don't think about how do I just buy more, what I would suggest you think about is how do I earn more, how do I increase my active income, how do I make more money on deals so that it can fund more passive investments. Now, like I mentioned, I got $100,000 coming in a month, so now almost every month I could buy another passive investment. But I was talking to Dennis before we started the call today. I have one deal that's going to make $2 million for me before the end of the year. Think how many more rentals I can buy. That's almost 2 years worth of rentals from that one active project. And so if you want more passive income, your brain power, your obsession should be on how do I make more money, whether it's at your job, whether it's with your business, or whether it's in real estate. And hopefully that mindset is helpful to you. Now to get to the point that I wanted to run by Dennis, because I got to the point where I had 65 different passive investments, single family homes, apartment complexes, mobile home parks, and it really became prohibitive. It became a lot of moving parts. So my new philosophy, I've been calling it my rule of 25. When it's my passive investing, I don't want more than 25 streams of income. And so for those of you that are watching this that are savvier investors, for those of you that have more, I don't want 30 single-family homes. If I got to 30 single-family homes, I would take 5 of them, sell them, and trade up for one apartment building. Now, I don't mind having 10 doors at one apartment building, because that's one apartment building. I see one apartment building as one stream of income. I see one mobile home park as one stream of income, because generally one single family home has one insurance policy, one apartment complex has one insurance, one tax bill, right? And so in my mind, what I've been doing with my portfolio is, as soon as I get over 25, then I tend to sell and trade up into multifamily or into a higher end property. So I have some higher end single family homes that I've been using as Airbnbs. I call it my it gets too complicated over 25 rule of thumb for high net worth individuals. What do you think about that, Dennis?
No, I think I agree. That's a very, very good idea. And you know, it's because I've owned both. And you know, you have 25 homes and you have 25 heating systems and 25, you know, plumbing systems, and you own one apartment building. It's, you know, there's one boiler in the basement. That's all I got to watch.
Yeah. So I mean, I used to have this fantasy. Well, I'd love to have like 300 single family homes and you know, I just want a lot, right? And then you get to a lot and you go, man, I love that you highlighted on the slides. Let me go back to that. The impact of fees and bookkeeping and how quickly you know it adds up. It gets really expensive, and just from a complication standpoint. And so for simplicity's sake, my personal rule of thumb is I want about a third of my net worth in my businesses, a third of my net worth in real estate, a third of my net worth in the market, and then roughly 10% cash. So and then even further, I don't want my personal residences to be more than 5% of my total net worth. That's something I found people always stop and go, oh, really? And then they're always doing the math, right? So to see if they fit that, because I find a lot of people I meet people that have, and you know as well, that they get house hungry. Their personal residence is 20, 30, 40% of their net worth, and it's a train wreck, because you're just slowing down your home is a liability. It may have equity, it may be worth more than when you bought it, but that doesn't make it an investment. Investment pays you, and your home never, unless you Airbnb it or rent out your carriage house, your home's not paying you generally. So,
can I make a quick comment about? I don't know where we're on time.
Yeah.
I want to make a quick comment about leverage. You know, we went through a period. We have obviously hundreds and hundreds and thousands of investors, and they're invested in different things. And there were a bunch of people who were, got on the Airbnb craze. I'm gonna buy an Airbnb, and I'm gonna buy an Airbnb, and that's gonna be great, and they're sexy, and I can make 3 times the rent because I get rented out by the day instead of by the year, and that was great. But we had some people who were buying those with heavy leverage, and what happened was, well, it wasn't that grand when everything was working. Heavy leverage works wonderfully when nothing goes wrong.
Right.
But you know what? Every now and then something goes wrong, and this year it was called the coronavirus, right?
Correct.
And so we had COVID virus, and people stopped using Airbnbs for a while. Now some of them have come back, but boy, oh boy, you went for 2 or 3 months with zero occupancy. The mortgage holder doesn't care that you had zero occupancy. The mortgage holder just says the payment is due. And so we had a lot of people, not a lot, but we had some people who had those Airbnbs foreclosed upon. Mm-hmm. And so I want to tell you that when you take on leverage, you do take on risk. We know that. I can tell you leverage increases the risk pretty substantially. And so when I see a person buy their first home, great, and with pretty much very, very low or no leverage, great. Second home, third investment. Now we can start buying that fourth investment, fifth investment with more leverage, because I've got 3 more homes that are already generating cash into that account so that the loans get paid. There is a fella here in Chicago, Sam Zell. His office used to be across the street from mine. And Sam, who is a great investor, always said, never take out long-term debt to support short-term income.
Right.
And it was, and he'd say, until it dawned on you, wait a second, the guy's right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great comment. what I wanted to do real quick is at the Aaron Adams training site, we have classes that investors can buy, that you as an investor can buy for $99. And so I wanted to go through some of the different topics that we have there and then give you a short summary of the pros, some of the pros and some of the cons of that strategy. Because I know as an investor, you're thinking, passively, what could make sense for me and how could that work? So I want to, in the last 10 minutes here, kind of hit quickly through some of the different strategies that investors are using for passive investing and break them down for you. So mobile home is a great strategy. There's about 4 or 5 different ways that you can invest in mobile homes as an investor. One of the best ways is with notes. So for example, I have a home that I sold to an investor here in Idaho. It's a brand new manufactured home in a park. And the investor custom ordered it. Not the investor, the homeowner custom ordered it. And they bought it for $140,000 and they put $40,000 down. It's their forever home. They want to live in, they want an RV in and out of the park, and they want to keep it as their home base and spend springs and summers up here in Idaho, and then they want to take their RV down to the warmer regions in the winter, and that's their game plan. So they put $40,000 down. They're on a fixed income, and there's no way they're going to default on that mortgage to me. They still owe me $100,000 at 8%. And so I have an investor who is a family member who is very conservative, and they just want passive investments. So I'm going to let that investor give me the $100,000 that the homeowner still owes, and then the homeowner can pay the mortgage payment to my investor. And that becomes the return. And so investing in a note and investing in a mobile home can be a very, very good passive strategy. Owning a mobile home park as an investor is more on the active income side. I don't love it for passive unless you buy it completely full and finished. Because one thing about mobile home parks is full mobile home parks don't generally go empty. And once you get them full, they tend to stay full. So if you can buy, from a passive standpoint, if you can buy a full mobile home park, or if you can be the bank inside of a mobile home park, and that's something that we teach at our training in Indianapolis, then those are 2 great ways to get into that. Anything to add to that, Dennis? You have quite a few investors that are doing some passive mobile home investing, correct?
We do, and we do, including my mother.
Yeah, exactly.
My mother buys those loans because she loves that reliable return, and I can tell you that the mobile homes that she has, or the manufactured homes that she has loaned money on, not only do they pay every month, they pay on the due date. I mean, we never even get close to a late fee. These are people who are good people, they're family people, and they see these as their forever home, as you say. I do want to talk about it. We're getting close to the end of the time. I know you have some stuff you want to wrap up with. For anybody who's thinking about coming to the Indianapolis event, what you're going to find is this kind of conversation. And you're going to be, not just from me, but from Aaron and other people. And they're all talking about, what they're doing, what they're seeing, how to do it, how you can do it. So you're spending 3 days, if I said to you, hey, would you like to spend 3 days with people who have made millions of dollars investing in real estate and are willing to share with you everything they know? Would you say, yeah, I want to do that? It's worth a fortune to me, because it really is worth a fortune, I can tell you. And you can get to do it for free. It's really, I want everybody who is qualified to consider coming to Indianapolis. It's a wonderful 3 days.
Yeah, I've added, you can email Fred at Alpine CS if you'd like to attend our September, October, or November trainings. If you're not comfortable traveling, or if you're at a high risk for COVID related, we can send you the live stream. If this has been valuable today, I literally ramble like this 8 hours a day for 3 days. I've also added in the chat bar Megan at alpinecs.com. You can email her and let her know that you're interested in attending. She'll schedule a phone call to reach out with you and go through that with you. So we'd love to have you join us for that. And like Dennis mentioned, we spend a lot of time on these topics. The last couple of months we've gone and looked at Airbnbs. And Airbnb for me is more of an active strategy. I haven't seen a very easy pathway to invest passively in Airbnb unless you have a family member who wants to do all the legwork. Maybe you buy the property and let them run the Airbnb side, and that way you're just getting that. Maybe they're just paying you a fixed mortgage payment. That might be a way, again, to be the lender on an Airbnb. Could be a passive way for you to get into that. Commercial is a fantastic passive investment vehicle. I have a commercial building in Indianapolis that I have two. It's a retail building, and I got two groups looking at it right now. One group wants to put an ice cream shop in there, and one group wants to do an artist studio. The artist offered me $1,500 a month for only a year because he doesn't know about his income. And the ice cream shop offered me $1,000 a month for 5 years. Now, what's unique about these commercial investments and why I love them is because they're what's called triple net. And what triple net means is I don't pay the property tax. So if the ice cream shop goes in there for $1,000 a month, they have to pay the insurance net, they have to pay the property taxes, and they have to pay all the repairs. And so that $1,000 to me is really my pure profit on that building. Now, I bought that building years ago at a tax sale for $30,000, and there was a skylight that was never built into the building when I took it over. I had there was a giant hole in the building. There was like animals living in it. I mean, it was a building I spent a lot of time slowly fixing up. But now to be able to make $12,000 to $15,000 a year on that is very passive. So commercial can be great passive, especially retail commercial. But keep in mind, COVID has decimated retail commercial. I had somebody text me just this morning. He said, Aaron, I have some partners. They have a mixed-use apartment, commercial retail building. Would you be interested in loaning on that? I said, I'm not touching commercial retail for at least 6 months because there have been so many restaurants that have closed, mom and pop, small businesses that have closed. We really don't know what the impact long-term is going to be in that commercial space, nor will we know for another 6 months. And so that's a stock, quote unquote, that I would say put a pause on buying right now because commercial, there's just a lot of uncertainty about commercial. Flipping is not a passive strategy, it's active. However, early in my career, I would do flips with family members where they put up the money. I did all the work, and we split profits 50-50. So if you have somebody in your life that's a go-getter and doing real estate deals, you could come in as a passive partner on a flip project, and that could be a very good, a great source of investment for you. And so I like flipping as the investor. But hopefully you're seeing a trend here where good passive investments, the rule of thumb that I have is that your active investments take whatever time they take. But I think for every $5,000 in income that you make a month on your passive investments, you shouldn't have to spend more than an hour of your active time managing that passive investments. And that time would be spent on managing your bookkeepers, managing your managers, managing your partners, going through financial documents, communicating with them via email, looking at your profit and loss statement, and basically overseeing your investment. And so when it gets big enough where it's at 20, 30, 40, 50,000, at that point you're going to hire an assistant or you're going to hire a bookkeeper to then compile everything and feed you the Cliff Notes version of that money. And that's what Dennis and I both do in practice. And so we're closing in on the hour. Obviously we've just scratched the surface of this investment of this topic of passive investing. Hopefully though you see it as a starting point. And one that you can, a journey that you can see that we're more than happy to help you with your very next step. For those of you interested in spending a couple $100 and self-directing some of your money, I know Dennis has a ton of resources that he can send you. One of his team would be happy to get on the phone with you and answer questions for that. And you can see on the screen both their website and phone numbers are on there. Feel free to reach out to them. The dates for our training, our passive cash flow training in Indianapolis are on here for September, October, and November. Megan, Meggan, at alpinecs.com is the person you want to reach out to book and save your spot at the training. or if you're interested in the links to the live stream, then email Fred at Alpine CS, and he can send you those links as well. And then those of you that are interested in active strategies, next Thursday, I'm going to be teaching an active training where we're focusing on active income, covering a lot of these same topics that we have here at Aaron Adams Training. If you'd like to join us for that, email Fred, and he'd be happy to send you the live stream link for that. I'm going to be bringing on next Thursday my partner Travis Howard to discuss active income. I've taught several of the classes with him. He runs my Charlotte operation, and he and I are going to be focusing on all things active for that hour. So appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us today. Hopefully this has been educational and worth the time. And we look
Aaron,
forward
can
to
I
having you
ask one?
connect.
Aaron, will these slides be available for, will this tape be available for anybody who's watched the presentation?
Yeah, so this same link will work. We'll save it on YouTube as in, I'll change it from private to public. And feel free to share this link with anyone else that you'd like, because it will stay on our YouTube page as an active lead that can go back and be rewatched.
Good deal. Thank you very much, Aaron.
All right, thanks, Dennis, and thank you for joining us.
Good deal.